Work is underway on the Strait development on Newcastle Beach, a bold project with 40 quality units ranging in price from $275,000 to more than $500,000. Other units are planned for nearby Zara Street, and the old wool store in Derby Street is being redeveloped. Nearby, a block of units has been designed for a former service station site. Council says there is a new confidence in the market with more room for top quality inner city apartments.
There have been units sold for $1 million in Newcastle recently. I think we've got to, if you provide better amenities, better car parking, security in living, I think you'll sell.
Experts believe there is an oversupply of lower-priced units, but the surge in demand for the Stronach-type development highlights people are prepared to invest in luxury apartments in the inner city.
Many times over the years we've had people who've been looking for that sort of thing and we just haven't had it available. So to that extent this is a very positive sign for the city.
Doctors Philip Robinson, Jumping Liu and Alastair Sim have uncovered the key which may unlock the mystery of brain diseases.
And what we found is a whole new cycle, a pathway in nerve terminals that controls how one cell communicates with the next. And it's a pathway that we didn't really suspect existed before, and we've now understanding how it works, and we've got points where we can control it.
Our bodies have hundreds of millions of nerve cells and nerve endings which act as the messengers to our muscles. From an everyday thing like picking up a cup to an intricate procedure such as surgery. This happens through little sacs in the nerve endings emptying their contents into the next cell, which is the body's way of communicating. But scientists were baffled as to how only a few hundred messengers in each nerve ending could perform so much work. But 3 years of research by the John Hunter Hospital and Newcastle University have solved the mystery. The body recycles the messengers. The sacs touch down on the cell wall, empty their contents, and then a little scientific miracle occurs. The sac is regenerated, creating a cycle of messengers. If this production line is stalled, the affected muscle is paralysed. They've also discovered all the links involved in the regeneration, which will allow scientists to develop drugs to improve communication between the nerve and muscle cells. The discovery has created a whole new environment for research into the brain. Knowing how the information is processed so quickly now allows scientists to find out what goes wrong and how to fix it.
What this will have impact on is any disease in the brain that involves nerve communication. So the major things are going to be things like epilepsy, where there's an overactivity. Mood disorders, where you might have swings, activity of nerve communication is down or up. And potentially things like Alzheimer's disease, where it's learning and memory problems.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Work on the $300,000 community centre began 6 weeks ago. However, nearby residents aren't happy with the development. This was the plan they originally thought would go ahead. The building is sited at an angle, leaving room for trees and a small yard. However, with construction well underway, they now realise that has changed significantly, and this is the new proposal. An amended development application was not lodged or processed by council.
The plan is in a different position, it's a different plan. I feel that it's not as architecturally well designed. It's far too close to the residence area. We're worried about invasion of privacy and also security.
Council claims it has community support for the development. However, Mrs Parmeter believes that's not the case. She says few in the neighbourhood have welcomed the building.
I believe not. I've done some research in the area and I believe that the research by council is not been satisfactory, and that the residents generally are very concerned about the loss of the parkland and the possible future use of this building.
Mayor John Kilpatrick said this afternoon there is no doubt the original DA approved plan differs from what's being built. However, council has done nothing illegal. While he empathises with residents, he says building is well underway and can't be stopped. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Oh, I think it's just wonderful, the generosity of all the people, the companies and also the individuals that have just given and that are just more than happy to give.
With 2 rounds remaining this season, there's still plenty to play for, particularly for juniors, with the Federation to select the Lions side to play in the National Youth League to be coached by Bruce Tracy. 3 teams remain in contention, the most important games in round 17 pitting West Wallsend against Wickham and the top of the table clash between Edgeworth and Azuri. Some believing an upset will keep the competition alive.
People may not agree with me, but I think Edgeworth could pull one out of the hat this weekend, which obviously will mean that it'll all go down to the last game of the season.
Although disappointed with the turnout at the meeting, representatives of Moree's Community and Youth Support Task Force and the Department of Community Services battled on.
Every member of the Moree community has got a moral responsibility to look at declining the numbers of Aboriginal young kids who are going into detention centres.
The Nardula project would involve providing accommodation for Aboriginal youths, including 4 bail beds for those awaiting court appearances.
What that will do is provide the magistrate with some options instead of having to send Aboriginal kids who don't necessarily have a home or are totally estranged from their family here in Moree, of having to be forced into being locked up on a remand basis.
It's a proposal that sparked fears ranging from Nardula becoming home to a jail to the loss of part of the property.
Why take our bit of land? Why don't you get some of your own?
Well, let me...
And you're saying, hang on, you're saying this is for the kids. Right, the kids already bloody own the place. If we release it, that is good as giving it away. Give me a say. If we give away this bit of land out there, we may as well not support any further future demonstrations for land rights because we've got enough, we're giving it away now.
I think people have got a misunderstanding that we're taking the land from them. We're not actually taking the land. What we're actually doing is leasing. We're only borrowing the lease for a certain period of time.
Following today's discussion, there'll be even more attempts at community consultation, with another public meeting to be scheduled within a month.
Must be cold here overnight. It's not too dissimilar to taking coals to Newcastle, 320 pallets or 20,000 boxes of oranges bound for Los Angeles and Philadelphia. It's the off-season for oranges in the States. South Australian growers showing the initiative in chasing the market.
It's just a new start by the growers from South Australia. They've started that up, and at least Newcastle get a bit out of it too.
The fruit was loaded onto the Spring Bob in Newcastle, freighted from South Australia by road. The Hunter Ports Authority is pleased to take the work, part of its diversification. Later tonight, hamburger meat will be loaded, the meat from local abattoirs. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It may look like a dangerous concoction, but these mocktails are all part of the new strategies being launched by the Moree Road Safety Group, made up of representatives from the police, the RTA, school education and local health providers. With the obvious goal of reducing accidents on country roads, the group also aims to spread the safety message across the bush. There is also a push to get the local community involved.
But also to get the ideas of country people as to what is happening in their own towns and on country roads. And so we've launched this particular program to make sure that the committee we've just formed talks to the local people.
Also launched today, a special hotline to encourage people to report safety issues. Mr Murray says the people will now have the chance to take road safety into their own hands.
So often you hear people say, I saw so-and-so happening the other day, somebody will get killed there if we don't do something about it. And that's as far as it goes. Now there is the opportunity for that person to actually put that idea, put that thought in and get a result from it.
Members of the Country Women's Association and Legacy were among those attending this morning's public address at Taree Council Chambers. As chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee lobbying breast cancer research funds, Beryl Evans says a centre of excellence is soon to be established in a Sydney hospital. She says regional centres on the coast would benefit from smaller centres, cutting down a long traumatic process of testing and diagnosis.
I want a centre of excellence where you can go along and have all that done in a day and meet the top people who can read the mammogram, the top people who can advise you, the specialist and the surgeon, and the whole works.
Mrs Evans predicted the needs of the aged would be a priority at the Premier's Forum in September. She says valuable experience is being lost to businesses through retiring employees. Her suggestion is to re-engage elderly workers as advisors.
They say to people, well, you know, darling, you've turned 60, turn down and be a good girl and be quiet, then we can forget about you. Now, we've realised very much so that that's not happening, and they're standing up and being counted.
Mrs Evans was the guest of the Gloucester Senior Citizens Association this afternoon. Tracy Walsh, NBN News. Today was the longest leg of the journey from Sydney to Brisbane. Leaving Newcastle at 6:30 this morning, they've travelled 200 kilometres to Taree. The Irish men and women were warmly received, a police escort provided. Each year the cyclists ride through different countries after raising the equivalent of $7,000 for the blind of Ireland.
Most of them had to raise the equivalent of 7,000 Australian dollars, and that was the number one challenge. After that, they trained for this cycle, and the challenge is to complete this course.
The journey ends in Brisbane on the 27th of this month. Owen Connell says some are inexperienced cyclists and completing the course is tough going.
And we have 17 blind persons on tandems on the course today, and it's a very long and tough trek for those people. And while I know that they will give it their best, the course is very long for them.
Mr Connell says enjoying the ride is as important as completing it. The group leaves tomorrow for Port Macquarie. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Like a plastic stand. No, $40.
Very slow.
This is the artistic version, is it right, Henry?
When we are filling up the mark, they should be signed.
Despite the dry times, life and work continues on the land. With the drought, farmers aren't able to feed their stock, so the markets are flooded with cattle and prices have plummeted.
You're looking at a lot of cattle today that are being sold, planter condition cattle are being sold today that would normally be carried through and sold next year. So they're getting a price of, say, $350 a head today, and they should be selling them next year for sort of $500 to $600.
The Upper Hunter is one of the driest areas in the state. Farmers around Scone facing the worst drought in 10 years.
Back in 83, 84, it was pretty dry, but this has sort of just gone on and on,
But despite the setbacks, farmers continue the fight, ever hopeful things will improve.
Just waiting for the big wet now.
Yeah. The Hunter Valley is a famous breeding ground for champion racehorses. Taronga Stud at Scone, a leading force in the thoroughbred industry. But the season at Taronga has been struck down with a contagious disease. Viral abortion has infected many of its highly prized mares, forcing them to abort their fetuses.
We have a significant outbreak at the moment, but it is controlled to one stud, and it is very unlikely, given the measures that are being undertaken, to spread to any other studs.
Veterinary specialist Dr. Angela Begg says it's a problem that's been in Australia for 20 years and has been diagnosed in the hunter before. It's transmitted through mares simply sniffing infected discharges. Taronga Stud believes its problems came from horses bought at a sale. The property now has a self-imposed quarantine. Stud owner Philip Redman wants something done to control the disease.
It's somebody else's turn next year, and that's what we've got to stop. We've got to treat this problem as an industry problem, and these losses are unacceptable.
He wants a vaccine which is available overseas to be used in Australia. While this season has been ruined, his stud should return as normal next year with no ill effects. Only the lingering loss of many potential champion yearlings. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Bob, there you go. On camera.
It's a problem across the world, overloaded garbage tips, but one company believes it may be able to ease the burden. A prototype has been developed of a special machine that it's estimated can cut tip sizes by 50% by shredding the garbage. It contains special self-sharpening cutters on springs that accept almost anything without clogging or breaking. While this is a prototype, the real thing could be up to 20 times bigger and used at council tips. The inventor and developer, who is based in Victoria, is hoping to bring his project to Newcastle.
Well, I can see this is an ideal spot to build it because you've got the steel factories, you've got fabrications, and this is where it mostly comes from. Plus we have some investors in this town which has been supporting our company over the years.
It's hoped the machine will be on the market within a year.
The Falcons are teetering on the edge of the playoffs in 8th position. Coach Tom Wiseman says the team must win its next 2 games at home, as it will be a hard run to the finals.
We have 5 of our last 6 ball games on the road, so we're going to have to be able to go on the road and win some ball games also, which we feel we're very capable of doing.
The cause could be helped by the renewed pressure by 2 of Newcastle's biggest men to make the first 5. Grant Kruger has been a regular in 94, but Paul Kuiper has found form during practice games in the break to push for a spot in the starting lineup.
He's made it known to the coaches that he's ready to play and focused on these last ball games, and could mean a lot more playing time for him. We like to have his size in there. He's playing some very good basketball at the moment.
Canberra will be a tough assignment. The Falcons won their first encounter, but lost only a few weeks ago in the NBL Lightning Championships. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
With the announcement that the Hunter Ports Authority is to be corporatised, the Managing Director of the authority now has the job to explain to users of the port what it will mean for them.
Clearly, the operation of the port is continuing as business as usual.
The port is expected to be released from direct control from Sydney early next year. Without the restriction of the government bureaucracy, it's expected to thrive. And today, Jeff Connell guaranteed that with corporatisation, Macquarie Street won't be getting a bigger slice of the profits.
Hunter Ports Authority has always paid dividends to the owner, the state government. A state-owned corporation would also pay dividends, but we have been investing in capital expenditure in this port.
The Port Authority has released a 5-year plan with a predicted continual growth in coal exports, an 8% general cargo increase. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Both Messenger and Gordon were victims from last weekend's semis, while West Centre Peter Chapman will take the field with an injured hand. Such is the commitment of the West side, which is motivated by the lingering memory of last year's grand final loss on the bell to Curry.
Still a bit of a touchy subject with some of the boys, I suppose, but we'll see what happens on Sunday.
One of the more industrious players in the West pack, Perrin was critical of his own performance last week and is confident the grand final replay will bring the best out of himself and Wes. He denied there would be any square-ups for past incidents, but promised a physical game in the forwards, with the West backline giving the minor premiers the advantage.
So hopefully we'll be able to get on top of their forwards and give it to our backline, which I think is the best backline in Newcastle, so probably play it out wide.
Meantime, Wyong take on Yamina Ettalong in the Central Coast Major semi-final, while in Group 21, Scone play Aberdeen.
In the world of engineering and construction, they don't come much bigger than Daewoo. Officials from the company inspected a 100-hectare site at Rutherford, keen to develop a $150 million wool storage facility.
We are looking for the possibility participate in the turnkey contractors for the East Austria wool centres.
Daewoo built the Olympic Village at Seoul and is also seeking work on the Sydney 2000 Olympics. The visitors met with Maitland Council, the owners of the Land National Textiles, and the Hunter-based Australian consortium to sort out a deal. Member for Patterson Bob Horn set up the meeting in a recent visit to Korea.
We met on a couple of occasions and as a result they said, can you arrange for a visa for us to come to Australia? We're very interested.
While the Korean visit is a major boost for the project, there is still much work to do. It will need support from the major wool brokers, and that is yet to be confirmed. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
When cattle are grain-fed to boost their protein levels, only 20% is actually absorbed by the animal. The rest passes straight through. But 12 months ago, the CSIRO developed a product with a coating that allows the feed to pass through the first stomach of a beast without the nutrient loss. Now, Moree company Rumentech has refined the product to a point where it's ready to be sold commercially.
We've got massive great potential in our exports and beef cattle, and in our foodstuffs and our export products overseas.
The technology also means the meat and dairy products that end up on the dinner table have a much lower cholesterol level because the rumen stomach, which creates and stores saturated fat, is bypassed. Rumentech has attracted investors to the tune of $6 million and is now looking to build 2 new plants to make the product.
Within the next 18 months, we will be building another 2 plants. We hope that we're going to be building another one in Moree, and there'll be another one either in central Queensland or down in the Riverina somewhere.
Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
The limited communications network which existed in Rwanda was decimated during the Civil War. When Australian troops were asked to play a role in rebuilding the country, they turned to Newcastle University for help to lift the performance of their portable satellite communication system. The problem was that the satellite they had to bounce their signals off tends to wander in its trajectory. But Newcastle University has a computer system that constantly works out where the satellite is and keeps the small portable antenna correctly aimed. The end result, in isolated Rwanda, the Australians have a complete communications network.
This system will allow them to communicate to anyone throughout the world, either by telephone, faxes, or picking up television or the transmission of television signals.
The satellite tracking system was developed by TUNRA, the University Research and Development arm, and resulting profits have been used to develop other equipment.
What they've been doing research and development work on can now be marketed to the world.
Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Okay.
Having successfully coached reserve grade to the grand final last year in the minor premiership this season, Finch was one of several who sought the Knights' first grade job, but was more than happy with last night's announcement.
The directors felt that Malcolm really was the man for the job, and I respect their decision for that. They offered me this position, a position which I've thought about for a long period of time, and I do feel that I appreciated their thoughts, and I'm happy to accept their position.
As football manager, Finch will meet Riley and Britton later this year to discuss the pre-season and recruitment, which is likely to become one of Finch's most important roles. He concedes the club will be looking to increase its depth, particularly in the outside backs. Having successfully coached Great Britain since 1987, really has established a rapport with some of Britain's leading players, which is also expected to benefit the Knights over the next 2 years.
I'm sure that Malcolm's got a good rapport with a lot of the high quality footballers in England. I'm not sure of their appetite, how much money they'd want, but obviously if they wanted to come out, Malcolm would entice them to come to Newcastle.
Meantime, current coach David Waite has refused to discuss the board's decision till after the last game this season. He's been forced to make several changes to the side through injury and suspension, with Brett Grogan promoted to first grade for Friday's game against Illawarra.